9 rounds down, and I'm pretty sure that was the most exciting round of the 2025 Formula One campaign. Strategy was an issue. A little bit of road rage was an issue. Penalty points are going to be an issue. So let's kind of review the Spanish Grand Prix. I am Joey here with Rob. Rob, what's up?
Hey, man, what's going on?
Whew.
I was thoroughly enjoying this race.
I loved it.
Quali was boring, which we kind of knew it was going to be. But most of the race, I mean, just from the start with the bad start for Russell, the good start for Piastri and Leclerc, like it was looking good. I thought it was going to be a boring race in the beginning. I'm not going to lie. I thought Piastri was just going to fucking disappear, and that was going to be that.
It's getting to be, you're starting to see the rivalry start to kind of pick up a little more. Russell and Verstappen. We'll get into that a little bit. McLaren kind of pulling away from this. They're fighting between themselves for the championship. That battle for best of the rest, as they call it, is starting to heat up. And I think some teams that didn't think they were going to be part of that have kind of been pulled into it a little bit. It remains to be seen. But let's get going. First things first, like you said, quali was boring. We're not really going to get into it. Qualifying was qualifying this weekend.
I mean, highlights of that were Ferrari was starting to look good. Still in that 5th, 6th area, but I was actually enjoying seeing them kind of moving up the pack. Lance Stroll got out, and he's out for a little bit, but we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about it now.
We'll talk about it a little bit, but we'll go let's go into the results of qualifying. Like you said, Ferrari is kind of in that 5th, 6th, 7th range. I think the pecking order is starting to kind of show with except for Max. Max is kind of throwing that that wrench in the works, because you see it's clearly McLaren, it's clearly Mercedes, then Ferrari, which they'll falter every once in a while. But Max is throwing it in there where, hey, we're still here. Red Bull is still here. We've won, 7 Constructors Championships to this point. They still want it to be known that they're here and they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. Mercedes doing way better than I think they even thought they would do. They knew they were going to compete somewhat based on the fact that McLaren has walked away with basically the Constructors Championship to this point. What are your thoughts on the basically? I would call the best of the rest the 3, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at this point, because clearly McLaren's the best.
Yeah, McLaren's gonna win this one. I'm calling it now. I feel like if Antonelli can keep making points, I feel like Mercedes may have a good shot at 2nd place. So I think Red Bull is going to drop. Obviously, Tsunoda's struggling with the car, trying to drive like Max, not getting up into the points. Max is going to be his own worst enemy. Ferrari will just kind of slip into 3rd naturally. That's kind of what I'm predicting.
I mean, I'm looking at the team standings right now, and you have McLaren with 362. 2nd is Ferrari with 165. So they're almost 200 points out. That's a little over, I want to say 8 races of a difference. So they could have this thing locked up pretty early in the season. If I look at the schedule right now, they could have it locked up by Italy.
Yeah.
Which is round 16. Think about that. That's
not even the last third.
Or no, you're in the last third. Because there's still points to gain at this point. Right now, they're almost 200. You would need one of them to, one of them could not score points for the rest of the season, and they could win it.
Yeah.
It's domination that I haven't seen since, I could say Red Bull and Mercedes, but,
the RB19.
With Red Bull, though, it wasn't always Max and Sergio 1 and 2. Mercedes, it was typically, you know, Lewis, Valtteri, or Lewis, Nico, 1 and 2, swapping it out. Red Bull back in the early 2010s, you'd have Mark Webber fighting for wins. You'd have Sebastian Vettel basically dominating most of the season. So still a lot to go. McLaren, if I look correctly, all but 2 races, both drivers have been on the podium. So, and those races, for those keeping track at home, were Saudi Arabia, where Oscar Piastri won, and Australia, where Lando Norris won. So, and we all know what happened in Australia with the pit strategy,
the tsunami.
The rain and all that. And in Saudi Arabia, just Lando didn't have a good day. So they're getting closer to each other points wise, whereas in the constructors, everyone's just kind of see you by the wayside. So let's get into some news coming out of Spain. Like you mentioned, and as the headline says, Lance Stroll was injured. He had to be taken out of the race to his own, to basically save himself.
Yeah, well, he needs surgery on his wrist.
He had the procedure. It went well from what I saw in the headline. This is an injury that stems from what they're saying is from his bike accident in 2023 prior to testing. So you're the medical professional between the two of us. Could something like that just come out of nowhere? Is it something that he would be dealing with for a while? He was clearly dealing with it this season with how much he struggled later on. What would kind of bring that back?
Well, once you have a break, you're going to have arthritis, but it doesn't usually show up for a little bit. What my thought is if he's having the pain at this point, being 2 years out, they're probably taking the hardware out of his wrist because it's causing the pain. So recovery is not going to be as bad. You're still, cutting through the skin again, going through the original incision site to remove it. But taking that hardware out, he'll have minor pain for a little bit. So he could make it to Canada if he can manage that pain. Missing it is also probable too, just depending on how he heals. He's young, he's healthy. I don't see why he would miss it. It's 2 weeks away. It's a little short, but they all have those high performance physical therapists and physios, and so it's possible. Is it realistic? 50-50 right now. If he did get new hardware put in, I don't see him returning to Canada though. So, but with regards to him getting pulled out, I don't know what happened in the garage after he got knocked out of qualifying, but there were no radio messages about pain and talking about that, but he definitely had reported temper tantrum again, breaking some stuff in the garage in frustration. So is that when they told him he wasn't going to race? I'm curious to know what was going on in that garage.
So just kind of looking through headlines, I came across one, planetf1.com. Don't know if they're a reputable source. If they are, great. If they're not, then I got interneted. But they say David Croft on Sky F1's The F1 show, he said he doesn't buy the claim that he's injured. He doesn't get, his quote, I don't buy the claim that we've been monitoring this for 6 weeks. If they've been monitoring it for 6 weeks, then surely for the good of the team, they wouldn't have put Lance into the car in qualifying if it's got to a point whereby he might not be fit enough to do a race. They'd bring Drogovic in. He also added that Lance puts in a lap, takes him to P7 and Q1, obviously fit enough to drive well at some range during that qualifying session, which I agree with him. If he's putting the car on in P7, what's happening? What gives? What is it something where it's just all of a sudden the pain happened? You say that there's a report that he, threw a helmet, smashed some stuff. Could he have hurt himself there, and it just, hey, I have really bad pain, I can't do it anymore. Like,
I
Mike Crack,
personally think the pressure got to him. I think he's over it. Is it possible he's having pain? Absolutely. I mean, granted, there's more long turns in the Spanish Grand Prix than other ones, but you're putting a lot of torque into your hands when you're making that turn, trying to turn those cars. And if you got hardware in there, you're not going to be able to turn as well with that hardware blocking it. Now, I'm not a Lance Stroll fan. It's well documented at this point. As a surgical nurse, I get it. Like, yeah, he's limited. As a fan, I don't give a shit. Put Djokovic in.
so
Like, let Aston Martin attempt to actually get some points.
So later on in the article I'm reading from, Mike Crack had a press conference with members of the media, including PlanetF1.com, after the race, and they said this is what Mike Crack told the media. It has been known already. The whole thing started in 2023. If you guys remember, there was injuries, and over the last weeks, there was a mention of pain or reducing time in pain. So he probably has been in pain, and then it just gets more and more, or it stays longer and longer in the car. He also said, you do not ask the driver every 5 minutes, do you have pain? You have a chat with the physio or hear a chat, and you understand that there are some small issues with the driver. We've seen it with Lance in 2023 when he fought his way back. The drivers, want to drive. They don't want to be out. So very often I think they drive with probably more pain than they would even admit to be able to drive, because this is what they love to do. So over the last weeks, there was mention here and there, but you're never aware how much it is. And then the weekend, I think he was just getting too much. I think at the end of the day, Saturday after qualifying, Lance and his team decided it would be better to go and check again. And then the recommendation was better not to race. So,
but also this was the end of a triple header too, so he didn't have rest in between, or not a week's worth of rest. Let me put it that way. So I get it, and I think if I had to guess, it would have been a hardware removal for that surgery. So, because I don't think he rebroke it. He doesn't have that many snaps when he drives. So, especially this year, not like last year, he had a lot more. So, yeah, it absolutely, I would agree it was a pain thing. But at the same time, that's probably why he had his temper tantrum, because the physios probably made the call.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's been rumors, at least I've seen a couple rumors of him, possibly leaning toward retirement. I don't want to put that kind of rumor out there.
Don't give me hope like that.
That's just what I've seen. But like you said, put Felipe Drugovich in a car. Here's a problem. He's already slated to run the 24 Hours of Le Mans the same weekend. Right. So, and that's a prestigious race in and of itself. So with that, maybe you put Valtteri in the car. Maybe you call up a Stoffel Van Dorn if he's not racing in Le Mans already. The driver pool has shrunk because of the weekend coming. So when you get as limited as you can, I think maybe they deputize Valtteri Bottas for 1 week and be like, hey, we just need you for 1 weekend. Come get in the car, just drive. It doesn't, we're not worried about points. We're not worried about, they're worried about points, but don't worry about putting yourself out there and putting yourself in damage. Just drive the car around. If you could get points, great. If you can't, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And then maybe even see what they have in the car that maybe Fernando can't get out of the car. He scored his first points this weekend, overshadowed by this news. So
I would love to see Valtteri in the car, because I don't think he'd lie about what's wrong with it either. I think he'd be open and honest with it.
I think the thing that's going to keep him from going there is the fact that they're not a Mercedes supplied engine after next season. Right. If they're Mercedes engines this year, they're going to Honda from what I've heard. So, maybe they get, maybe you get the super sub Hirakawa in, That's why I wish that these big racing events like Le Mans can have its weekend to itself. Don't have F1 that weekend. Don't have NASCAR. Like, just make it an off weekend for all racing except for the 24-hour race, because it's such a big event. I'm not FIA. I'm not Formula One. I'm not NASCAR. I'm not IndyCar. Like, they made the schedule the way they did, and so be it. So it'll be. We're gonna watch this with bated breath. Mike Crack has said, hey, he's going to be in the car. Stroll is. So,
well, that's plan A.
Yeah, plan A. But plan A doesn't always work. So,
no.
That's, it's neither here nor there. Tell me what's going to happen. We'll find out next week when the race gets closer.
Oh, next week.
I'll say next week, because free practice 1 is on my birthday.
There you go.
So that's how I knew Canada was that weekend. Next topic. Let's talk about strategy. That has been the topic of the week since Monaco. And they just fell into a gold mine. And I don't think they know how they did it.
Well, I'm sure there was some, just from looking at the data from the past races. I mean, it's well documented that Spain has those long turns, has those rough tracks. So there was going to naturally be more wear and tear. I was really interested to see Red Bull pull the 3 stop and see how that was going to finish. Unfortunately, we kind of got hosed by that one with the results. I mean, we did see how it finished, but at the same time, giving up the spot, the accident that we'll get into, could he have done a little bit better? Though I do think Red Bull screwed up the strategy by, after the safety car, putting on hard tire, or was it during the safety car, put on hard tires?
It was, but that was the only tire they had left. So, in all honesty,
that was new.
That was but you're not putting used when you have a couple people who have fresh mediums, fresh softs. You're putting a fresh tire against a fresh tire.
Yeah.
Plus, drivers would rather fresh rubber than scuffed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Max's situation just falls to Red Bull strategy. The tire fall off was great. It created those comers and goers from second on back. But, we need to find out what we did with this race, and we need to bring it to every race after that. I know I saw that Spa, they're going to have a step between the soft tire and the medium tire to try to get teams to be a little more aggressive on strategy. I'm sure they'll find a way to make that boring. Also, Spa is 4 rounds from now. So, what are you going to do between Canada, Austria, and Great Britain? It remains to be seen. But I applaud Pirelli and F1 for getting this right. I applaud them for the great race they put on. I think the thing that kind of helped it a little bit was the red flag, not the red flag, the safety car with Kimi Antonelli's car blowing up.
Yep.
It's such a bad spot to, it's a good spot because it was probably the safest spot he could have had. But, you don't want going into a hairpin like that. You're braking already. You're like, oh, yeah, the car's going to make it. And then it's just, oh, no, the car shut off.
Yeah. Total engine failure.
Going into 10.
I will also say I was impressed with how quickly they pulled the trigger on the safety car, too.
Well, I think because of where it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just the way it happened, you have, is there fluid on the track for one? It's in a hairpin that has that opens a little bit. It's not just a sharp hairpin. You also then have, he's in the firing line. If anybody has a brake failure, they're probably going to turn to try to get the car to spin, and they'd be going right to him. So, and they had to get a safety vehicle on between, the fences of the racetrack to get him out So you have to put the safety car out immediately.
Yeah.
Plus, with it being the end of the race, if you wait to put a safety car out, one, you're going to have drivers who say, "Oh, I could get a cheap pit stop possibly if I pit now." They go into pits, then you have cars in front. It would kind of create better racing, but then there'd be like a clear advantage and disadvantage.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So just kind of keeping that in mind of, good timing on the safety car, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And then later on, you had Albon retire. Luckily, didn't have a safety car issue, but
Well, he retired because they were running out of wings, because I think that was the second front wing he had been replacing another front wing.
yeah,
And you have to save one for if Carlos has one.
right.
So they pull him in, and as they pull him in, he gets a 10-second penalty. Smart thing to do. Hey, let's just serve it now.
Mm-hmm.
Do another lap, and then come in and retire the car. I did kind of laugh at, they come on the radio and say, "All right, we've been given a 10-second penalty, so you're going to serve that now." And Alex just goes, "For what?" And he goes, "Well, we've been given a 10-second penalty that we're going to serve now before we retire." "For what?" And he just kept saying, "For what?" Like trying to ask, why did I get the penalty?
Right.
And they just kept telling him, "Well, we're going to serve the penalty now because you have a 10-second penalty." It was like, "For what?" And it brings me back to Mugello in 2020 when Kimi Räikkönen, I think he was still driving for Ferrari at the time. He's going around the track, and you hear the engineer go, "Okay, we have a 5-second time penalty. We're going to serve before the end of the race." And you just hear Kimi go, "For what?" And he repeated it, and then Kimi just gets a little louder and goes, "For what?" And it's I love getting those radio calls. It's just like, what did I do? What? Just like the words of wisdom at Australia.
Yeah. I feel like this year, during our highlight, there's going to be like an award for best radio message.
As of right now, to me,
Still the water one.
it's between the water one, and now it's between that and the exchange on pit road explaining that he had a penalty.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah.
So
we'll see what happens. We're only starting the second third of this season. So
yes, and there's a lot of exciting races to come until Hungary and the summer break, which is going to be rough. We're gonna figure something out to do during the summer break when there's no race between August 3rd and August 31st.
Yeah, that's way too long.
Yeah, but we'll survive. Speaking of surviving, Sauber has become a bit of a threat, I would say. I mean, at one point they were considered the worst car. They finished before the max penalty. He finished 6th.
Yeah.
Nico Hülkenberg did. 1, 2. He passed a Ferrari to get that spot. I don't care who you are. Sauber in today's Formula One should not be passing a Ferrari.
I agree. I think threat might be a little exaggerated, but at the same time, is it Sauber or is it Hülkenberg? Because he's been doing good in a lot of races. Is he finishing in the points? No, but that could be also strategy. But if you've seen back on a couple of races, and I'm blanking on some of them, but he's been within the 7-8 range a lot, and fresher tires pop on, pit stop strategies. Sauber isn't the best at the undercut. I think they finally did it this time, and that's why he scored 6th place, jumping up to 5th. But yeah, I feel like their strategy hasn't been the best. I feel like Hülkenberg as a driver is showing that he can work with the shit box.
Well, you have to remember that this is the last year that they'll be known as Kick Sauber. Next year they're going to be Audi. So I'm sure Audi's people are kind of, they're starting to lay the groundwork of this is how we want to do things. This is the technology that we have. So they're utilizing that and then improving the car.
Mhm.
if by the time they get to Abu Dhabi and they're finishing in the points, they could very well be a threat next season. It's
I'm
going to be.
curious to see how it goes for the rest of the season. Like,
I'm excited.
I'm not
I'm excited to see how they
nixing
do.
them.
I
I
think.
knew they were better than Alpine, and they're showing it. Like, granted, Gasly is looked good this weekend too, and he probably would have gotten to the points if he didn't get knocked out in Monaco.
Well,
But
I think the thing with Alpine is they have a lot of things going on behind the scenes that aren't necessarily great, and
Correct.
they've been going on since the whole Oscar Piastri. I don't know why they said yes, or they said this without my permission, kind of thing. I think Alpine's been kind of in trouble since then.
oh yeah,
Um,
so but I mean, Sauber, it's a good win for him. I'm definitely applauding them. It looked good. I just feel like most of the credit goes more towards Hulkenberg than it does the actual team at this point.
but you can't fault Bortoletto. He's a rookie in a bad car. When you put a rookie in a bad car, they're gonna struggle. They're gonna show, like perfect example. Kimi Antonelli's a rookie, but he's up there fighting for points.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good driver. Bortoletto is a good driver, and he's gonna be constantly at the bottom. So his confidence may be getting shot. There's things about this car that he can't figure it out that a veteran can easily just go, oh, well, I just need to do this and I can, finesse it a little bit. He doesn't have that experience yet. So, how do you expect him? It's just like they say they have these jobs that you can apply for and they say, oh, well, come on in. We'll interview you. You go in for the interview and they go, no, we're going with somebody with more experience. How am I supposed to get experience if I'm not working the job?
Yep.
So
that, and is he on a 1-year contract? Could he be worried about fighting for his job when it becomes Audi? Maybe Audi's got backup plans on drivers.
I don't think he's on a 1-year.
Wasn't Valtteri talking about Audi as a interesting project, or was that the one coming in? Was that Cadillac? I think it was Cadillac.
He said Cadillac. He said Cadillac looked interesting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pull up his, because sometimes they put out like how many years their contract is.
Mm-hmm.
He signed a multi-year deal with Kick Sauber starting in 2025.
Does that cross over when there's a new owner?
It's a 3-year contract. It has to.
Okay.
So he signed a 3-year deal. So it's up in 27. If they want to try to back out of it, they can. I'm sure there's verbiage in his contract that'll state it, but at this point, he is a driver for the foreseeable future at Kick Sauber. One driver who we don't know his future because headlines keep teasing he may be out. He may institute a, release clause, whatever that may be. He had a bit of an interesting weekend this weekend. That driver's Max Verstappen.
Yep.
So
that was entertaining and disappointing at the same time.
He was fighting for the lead. Strategy was going to kind of keep him in that second, third range. The safety car comes out when Kimi Antonelli's engine hand grenaded going into turn 10. So they pit Max for a cheap pit stop, and the only new tires they have are hards. He goes out, and you could kind of start to hear, the anger start to flow. He's like, well, why are we on this tire? And they said, like, this is all we have. It's the one we've got. So you kind of started to hear it a little bit. Safety car comes in. They start to go, and they always go right before. I think Oscar went at 13. So
there's also a run-in because Oscar slammed on the brakes too.
Yeah, going into 10, so when you enter the third sector, you become the pace car. Like, you become the pace vehicle. So he was backing everybody up. Not everybody was paying attention. Max almost slammed into the back of Lando, caused a whole to-do. Comes out of goes into 13. Oscar takes off. The field chases after him. Coming out of 14, Max with the save of the race. If it was a lesser man, that car was wrecked.
Yeah.
He, as Darrell Waltrip says, he crashed without wrecking the car.
Yeah. I mean, Brundle was saying the car was practically sideways.
It was.
Yeah.
He was pretty much at a 90-degree to try to save that car, if not more. That gave George Russell behind him and Charles Leclerc an opportunity to catch him. Going down the main straightaway, Leclerc and Verstappen are side by side. I don't fault, Nico Rosberg kept saying, like, Max, you moved over. But when I look at it, it was two drivers going for the same piece of real estate. That's a racing thing. I don't fault anybody for that. That shouldn't be a penalty.
Yeah, front axles were pretty much side by side.
When they get to the next corner, Max is forced off the track by George because he's there, and George loses it, pushes Max off. They go through that, if you get off the track at that 1-2 complex, you have to go around 2 sets of cones. Max does that, keeps a spot. They go for about a lap, and Red Bull, with whatever reason I don't understand, because my problem is, and we'll get to it after we talk about, or we say what happened. Max is told to give the position to George. Max is confused, doesn't understand why. He gives the position back and then tries to do that thing that he does where he's like, I'll give you the position back, but as soon as you pass me, I'm going to take off. He's doing it into a braking zone of turn 5. They touch wheels pretty heavily. It causes George to go off the track, and then Max takes off. Here's the problem I have. Earlier in the race, the same thing happened where 2 cars came together. One got forced off the track. He went around the 2 cones at the exit of 2, going into 3, and he was told, give the position back. I'm sorry. I did what you told me to do. It's not my fault you made it an advantage, which is basically what happened. That escape road became an advantage for drivers, and they utilized the hell out of it.
Yeah, I saw so many on the escape road this weekend.
So Max should not have to give a position back. He followed the rules to the T. Unless in the driver's meeting, which I wish that they would release the driver's meetings again, because they used to do that right at the end of, I want to say it was 2013, 2014. No, it was later than that. It was around the time that Liberty Media had taken over. They would have the driver's meeting with Charlie Whiting, and he would just go, any questions from last week? And they would discuss last week, and they would talk about it, and they would go over things, and they'd say, okay, have a nice day. And it was like maybe a 9-minute video. They did it from about midway through the season to like 2 weeks before the season ended. I want them to bring that back.
At least put it on F1's YouTube channel or something.
Put it on F1 TV for all I care.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like as much as there is transparency these days, there's still things that the fans enjoy seeing. Like, you like watching that. I'd be interested to see what they have to say. And I mean, it's not like it's got to be live. You can always censor when, Max has his little tantrums and starts cussing.
It makes me wonder, do they even have drivers meetings anymore?
Supposedly they still do.
I mean, they're supposed to.
Maybe they just don't feel like it's worth it. But I do agree. I think him giving up that spot was absolutely ridiculous. It shouldn't have happened. It makes no sense. He was ahead of Russell when he was off anyway, so he really wasn't gaining an advantage. So I think if you don't force Max to give that place back, there is no accident in the braking zone, and there is no 10-second penalty that literally screws Max out of points and gets him another penalty point, which
it got him 3.
Got him 3. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
That if you get 12,
because it looked pretty intentional.
Yeah, if you get 12, then you're suspended for a race.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully for him, he's got 2 points expire on the 30th. He'll have a little more wiggle room. Then the next ones expire on the 27th of October. So he's just got to be careful, especially considering you can get 1 to 3 at a time.
Yeah. But at the same time, he's got 2 more races. He's got Canada and Austria. So those 2 points fall off right after Austria. So he's got to be a good boy for 2 races. And we know Max does not play nice in the sand.
No, yeah, they keep saying like, well, who's going to take over if he's suspended? Let's let him get through these 2 races. I don't think he's going to do anything too stupid to, cause that to happen. But
it'd be interesting to see what does happen.
I think they're going to sit down with him and be like, listen, if you get 1 more point, you're suspended. That's crucial points in the constructors and in the drivers' championship that he probably feels he can't win.
I agree. But hypothetically, if he does get 1 more point before the break, the 2 points fall off, does Hajar move up and a reserve ride with Lawson, or do they pull someone from, another team, or maybe their own reserve drivers? It's interesting to think.
I think they would pull from their own reserves. I mean, the Red Bull Junior program is huge.
Yeah.
Depending on how
time in the car.
Yeah, depending on how the Isaac Hajar they're not going to pull him from RB to put him in a Red Bull for a week. That's not happening. They'll deputize somebody. There's someone in the wings waiting to be a driver, and there's no telling who it could be. They might pull somebody from freaking Australia to be like, hey, they might pull Daniel. Be like, hey, come race for a week.
No, stop teasing the Drive to Survive fans. It's not going to happen.
No, it's not that. Like, he knows Red Bull.
I know. But
he may just be like, hey, you got a shitty send-off last time. Let's give you a proper one this weekend.
Is he even racing in anything else?
No.
Like WEC or Rally?
I think he's just relaxing right now.
Yeah.
Which he deserves it. Like,
I don't think he's in the shape that he needs to be to drive the F1 car at this point. Would love to see him on the track again and have that drive that he had in 18, but I don't think he's got it.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news to you, Rob, but rumors are swirling that Daniel Ricciardo is coming back to Red Bull.
Red Bull or
Red Bull?
Maybe Cadillac.
Red Bull.
It's not bad news to me. Like I said, if he comes back, I want him to come back the way he started before he left. I think him leaving was stupid. I get it. He didn't like playing second fiddle, but he needed to prove himself by doing what he needed to do on the track, not by leaving and going to a shit team.
Yeah, but that's part of the F1 thing. You have to make the right decisions for you, for the teams, for all that, but at the top, if you're a driver, it's what's best for me. At the time, he thought the best thing for him was to leave Red Bull and go to Renault because he, at that time, Red Bull was leaving Renault and going to Honda.
Mm-hmm.
So he thought, oh, well, I'm a Renault engines guy and they have an opening. I'm going to go there. He didn't know that they were going to be bad.
Yeah.
Then you put him at McLaren where they were just at the tail end of sucking. Like they were just on the up and up, with Carlos and Lando. They were just starting to kind of, hey, we're here. Then when Daniel went in, it's like, okay, wait, I'm still here. Wait for me. And then Oscar got put in. The car looked like shit. And then it's, oh, well, maybe it wasn't Daniel. Maybe it was the car. And then the resurgence happened.
Yep.
That just happens in Formula One where you'll have that kind of drop off. And then it's like, oh, shit, here we go.
I get it. I absolutely do get it. I mean, case in point this season, Lewis is fulfilling his fantasy or his longtime dream of wearing, the Ferrari red. It's unfortunate he's in a shit car too. He's doing his best, but I mean, it doesn't help that Leclerc looks good in it, but at the same time, they have different styles of driving as well.
And with regards to Lewis, like it's a 3-year deal. That 3rd year is an option. Ferrari could be like, hey, like we need to get for our future, we're going to drop you. And that could happen. It's a realistic thing because Ferrari believe they're the biggest brand in the world, which
They are.
everyone knows what Ferrari is. So, you get a 7-time champion like Lewis Hamilton, it's like, all right, yeah, you're done. We need our future. Come on up, Ollie. It's your turn.
I get it.
That's just my opinion.
Don't agree with the method, kind of like their drive, like their pit strategy, but it is what it is. Speaking of Lewis, I mean, that had to be painful to let Leclerc pass him.
There's
well.
there's some things going on at Ferrari that I don't think we know. I think there's some infighting going on, or it's at least about to start.
Oh, definitely.
And we'll see. We'll see when if in Britain they have a shot to win and they pull some kind of stunt like this, watch out.
See what happens.
So that's all I've got for Spain. Do you have anything?
No, I mean, Oscar won it. Looked good. He had fastest lap. Norris was second. Leclerc was able to sneak up. Max's penalty dropped him to 10th, which pushed everybody up. Hulk higher, Gasly higher. I think Hamilton as well. So, it is. Hadjar looked great. He's in the points again. He's staying in that 7-8 range. So it's looking good for him. It's showing how good of a skill set he has. It's nice to see, and this is no dig on Gasly because I think he's a great racer too. But it's nice to see a French driver regularly in the points again.
Well, I think that's more on Alpine than anything. Alpine's got a lot of
100%.
things in, behind the scenes that's going wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that, I think Hadjar, don't be surprised if in the next 2 years he's driving a Red Bull. He's got the talent.
Mm-hmm.
He's got, I think Australia, the way it went for him was the best thing to happen for him because now he's so hyper-focused and he's so ready for anything that can happen. He knows that it can happen when you least expect it, like on a warm-up lap. So,
right. And with the possibility, the definity of Honda going to Aston Martin, will Aston Martin try to snipe Tsunoda over to them and drop Stroll finally?
Well,
or
like
Alonso.
I said, the rumor is possibly. I think Alonso is going to go on his own terms. They're not going to kick him out.
Yeah.
I
think he needs to be a team principal one day.
I think they want to see what he's got or what the car has, and they're going to wait till at least 27 to start thinking about, okay, let's think of a replacement. Unless there's some shock like, oh, hey, I'm retiring, which I can see Fernando doing.
I honestly feel like towards this end of the year, they're going to start looking. They're not going to pull a trigger, but I think Alonso might do one more season and then call it and go out on his terms. Hell, he could probably do it after this year with how bad the car is. Or like you said a while back, he could see what the 2026 car looks like and see how the new engines play and have fun, and then go be Bortoletto's full-time manager and hang out with him in the garage.
I think if they're smart, they wait to see, they wait for 27 to let Fernando go. Just see what needs to be done with the car, get a veteran presence that knows what a good winning championship car should feel like, and put him out there. The only thing is he hasn't won a race since when? 2012, 2011. So,
well, that's the thing. I think let him drive it in 26, get his feedback throughout it. You got Adrian Newey over there who's going to make that thing spectacular. Would not surprise me if they're definitely fighting at minimum best of the rest. You need the right drivers, though. So we'll see what happens. That's foreshadowing conversations that we don't know the truth about. And other than that, how funny was it in this race that Max Verstappen got driver of the day?
That was great.
I laughed so hard when I saw it pop up.
I think a lot of fans were looking at that situation like, yeah, he should, they didn't see anything wrong with the situation. His team is what basically got him to do everything that he did. He just got pushed over the edge. He's like, I don't know why I'm giving the spot back. And then he wasn't paying attention. I think they were light on him to an extent on the penalty. You know, I know
Well,
that
10 seconds
Nico,
takes away all those points. So
it does, and that's. I think Nico Rosberg thought he should be, disqualified for it, and he's like, it's the same thing as Sebastian and Lewis at Azerbaijan, which I kind of agree with him a little bit, but I'm not a race steward. I'm not a, I'm not the higher up of. I'm not the race director. So
yeah, Nico also thinks he knows everything too. So
you got him for a couple more races, I think, this year. I'm sure he's going to be at Hungary.
That's fine. He does good commentary. I think he gets a little bit overly opinionated when it comes, but at the same time, he is a driver, and you want that opinion. You want to see it from a third party perspective who's not fully invested. At the same time, he does have some biases when he talks. So, and he's not a fan of Max.
He was a Mercedes guy through and through.
Exactly.
He drove for Sauber at one point.
Yeah.
But we shall see. I think that's enough for the recap of Spain. So I think
F1 movie.
We're going to talk about that next week when we do the recap or the preview of Canada because it's on North America.
Yep.
So for Rob, I'm Joey. This has been the Ready, Steady, Go F1 podcast. See y'all next week.